I think the White House is just planning to go ahead with the State of the Union as it was planned, and it's also my understanding that preparations continue up on Capitol Hill for the possibility that this thing could still go ahead. The Sergeant at Arms, which oversees the process of State of the Union on Capitol Hill, has been delivered a letter from the White House this morning asking for a, quote, walkthrough of the House of Representatives and the area of the Capitol where the president will be traveling in preparation for State of the Union, which is scheduled for next Tuesday, January the 29th. You'll probably remember that the Sergeant at Arms last week canceled a planned walkthrough. That was done at the request of Speaker Pelosi's office. Now, we have not yet heard from Speaker Pelosi's office whether or not they will ask the Sergeant at Arms to not schedule a walkthrough or not. But I'm also being told that Sergeant at Arms staff was told last week and again today to proceed with planning as if this thing is happening. So we do not know whether or not this is going to actually take place on Tuesday the 29th, Eric, but at least the Sergeant at Arms office up there on Capitol Hill, the U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, and the White House are all planning to go ahead with the president being where he was asked to be next Tuesday. So that the ball now in Nancy Pelosi's court. Let's see what she says.
Yeah, well, it's at least they're preparing for that, so we're waiting for word from the Speaker's office on this. Meanwhile, shutdown day 32, the Senate's considering that bill this week. That does include the president's wall money, but the Democrats likely to oppose.
Yeah, but there are also some Democrats that are open to the idea of what the president is talking about. The quibble here seems to be, and this is both in the House and in the Senate, is whether you can negotiate on something while the government is closed or whether out of principle you have to have the government open before you go ahead with negotiation. Here's what Hogan Gidley, the Deputy Press Secretary, said this morning.
They're playing politics with people's lives here. It's dangerous for the country. And there are 800,000 federal workers that by midnight tonight, if a deal is not reached, they are guaranteed to miss a second paycheck in a row. That's unacceptable. Democrats have to come to the table to work with us to fix it.
You know, one of the Democrats that is considering the president's offer is West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. He's always been a centrist Democrat in a state that President Trump won by 40 points. So sometimes the president's ideas are good ideas for the state of West Virginia. But the leadership on the Democratic side in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, still firmly with his heels dug in on all of this, saying no negotiation until after the government is open, and he is still firmly opposed to any idea of a border barrier. Listen here.
We are aghast that he wants this giant 30-foot wall to be the symbol of America. I tell President Trump, I've told him to his face, we want the symbol of America to remain the Statue of Liberty, freedom, equality, not a divisive wall. And we will fight for that. Fight for that, we will.
But the president tweeting this morning about what he sees as the benefit of a wall, saying, quote, without a wall, our country can never have border or national security. With a powerful wall or steel barrier, crime rates and drugs will go substantially down all over the United States. The Dems know this, but want to play political games. Must finally be done correctly. No cave. The president saying he's not going to cave. And Eric, I attended last week a briefing at Customs and Border Protection where they were talking about the need for a wall, particularly in some areas along the Rio Grande Valley and westward of that in Texas. And the thing is that they want it really to interdict drugs and other illegal cross-border activity. But because the wall cannot be built, we talked about this yesterday, in the floodplain of the Rio Grande, that means that a lot of these migrants from Central America, the Northern Triangle countries, would be able to get their feet on U.S. soil long before they got anywhere near a border barrier. And those are people who want to be apprehended by the Border Patrol. So while this is designed to stop illegal cross-border activity, drugs, human smuggling and the like, it would not stop the idea of these migrants coming across, putting feet on U.S. soil so they can be apprehended by the Border Patrol.
The president offered concessions to the Democrats this weekend, but as we told you in our interview with Vice President Pence, they rejected it before the president even officially made his offer. We're going to be talking now to get reaction from the number 3 Democrat in the House, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Why flatly reject the president's offer, which, yes, it calls for more money for the wall, but on the other hand, it does offer temporary protection for the dreamers, temporary protection for those TPS refugees, and would reopen the government? Why not sit down and negotiate? I mean, isn't it a reasonable opening offer?
Well, thank you so much for having me. You know, what we're trying to do here is get the government open. And what we've said to the president is, let's open up the government. We could do that, as you said, tomorrow morning. He has bills that he could sign and could open the government up right away. Let's not hold the American people, especially the federal workers, hostage to these negotiations. And hopefully we will open with what he has put on the table. And let's go back and forth on this and see where we can find common ground. We're all for negotiating, and we would love to have a permanent fix for DACA and TPS, just as he wants a permanent wall. I think it's a non-starter for him to ask for a permanent wall and for us to have a temporary fix. Just think of what would happen to DACA children. If you are finishing high school and get a temporary 3-year fix, it means by the time you got to your junior year of college, you are under threat of having this rug pulled out from under you, never being able to finish school, just as the president did when he came into office and got rid of what President Obama had done for DACA recipients. And so this is the kind of stuff we want to sit down and put some stability in people's lives and have some permanent solutions to this immigration problem. And the president seems to want to continue to play games with us. He gets a permanent fix for his wall, and we get a temporary fix.
Congressman Clyburn? Yes. Yeah, so I just want to make sure. Yes. Bottom line, are you saying no negotiations until the president reopens the government? And are you saying, as Speaker Pelosi does, under no circumstances, no money, new money for the wall?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying yes to the first part. To the second part, it seemed as if the president started talking about barriers in his statement on yesterday. And as you realize, I have been talking about barriers for a long time. A smart wall will be a barrier. A smart wall will be using drones, using sensors, using X-ray equipment to be an effective wall. Not just something that would be a monument to one's existence, but to be a deterrent at the border and to be an effective barrier for people who are trying to come in illegally. And while we're doing that, let's fix our ports of entry. Yes?
Okay, well, I was going to say is look what the president is offering on his side. Protection, yes, temporary, but protection for the dreamers and TPS refugees, more money for immigration judges, more money for Border Patrol, more money for detention beds, humanitarian support, and drug detection technology. Don't Democrats end up looking like you don't care about border security and that you don't want to reopen the government?
Well, I don't know how it may look to someone, but all I would ask you to do is look at the $1 billion that was put on the table before the president had his statement on yesterday. $450 million for hiring new judges, hiring new personnel, border policemen, and another $550 billion to put in for ports of entry for having the infrastructure that we need. So that is already on the table. So I don't know if the president did anything that was new. All he did was regurgitate the stuff that we had already given him in the past several months.
But just to make clear, you're saying no negotiations, no compromise until he agrees to reopen the government. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. I can't see us keeping federal employees, 800,000 people, out of work while we go back and forth on negotiations. These negotiations could take 3 or 4 weeks. We ought to open the government up. We can pass a continuing resolution for 30 days. get the government open, get people back to work, and then let's sit around the table and see where the common ground is. It may be just as simple as taking temporary off the TPS fixes, and I would hope that his TPS fix will include those countries where I find my roots, where he seemed to be so dismissive of some time ago, and that is Haiti, African countries, temporary protected status for all people seeking to come to this country.
Congressman, I want to switch to two other subjects before we let you go. First, BuzzFeed. Special Counsel Robert Mueller, as I just discussed with the Vice President, knocked down the BuzzFeed story that the special counsel had evidence that the president directed Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. Now, before he knocked the story down, House Democrats jumped on the story. I want to read a couple of the quotes from what they said. Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, said, "We don't know if it's true, of course, but already people, of course, are saying this is a matter of the gravest urgency." David Cicilline said, Congressman from Rhode Island, "If true, this is, I think, the most serious threat to the Trump presidency that we've seen so far." Should your members be more cautious? Because it almost seemed in this rush to judgment as if there are a lot of House Democrats that want to impeach the president.
Well, Chris, when you preface your statement with, "if this is true," that to me gives you all the cover you need. And I would say that if it is true. Now, if they had said something as if it were true, then that would be one thing to be concerned about. But they've all said, if this is true. There are a lot of things that I hear daily. If it were true, I would be concerned about it. Sometimes you preface it with that, and sometimes you just don't say anything. So I don't think that my Democratic friends are in any way rushing to judgment, because they qualified right up front, if this is true.
All right. I want to talk to you this weekend, of course, is Martin Luther King weekend. You're going to be speaking tomorrow in the state capitol in Columbia on an observance of Dr. King's birthday. Some members, Democrats who are potential candidates in 2020 are going to be there. A couple of questions. First of all, is there anybody so far in this crazy field that could be as many as 24 candidates? Is there anybody that stands out for you? And more importantly and specifically, is there any one of them who you think could advance Dr. King's legacy?
Oh, quite a few of them could advance that legacy. I think that, I don't know who all is going to run, but you've got people like Joe Biden, who spends a lot of time in South Carolina. Joe Biden has demonstrated a commitment to Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. You've got Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. These are the three people that I've seen and heard from mostly in South Carolina. But Eric Swalwell was here last night. We have others who will be coming very soon. I talked with Kristen Gillibrand. I think that she told me that she is on her way to South Carolina. I've worked with all of these people. I think they are outstanding people. They will make great public servants. They already are great public servants. And so any one of them would do a good job of pushing that legacy. Remember, in fact, I'll be talking about this tomorrow. I've told people a lot. Aside from the Bible, I think one of the most timeless documents I have ever read in my life was Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham City Jail. I've read that letter about 100 times, and I read it again, not all of it, but I read some of it again last night. And what jumped off the page at me is injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that reminds me so much of what we're going through today. The injustice that we see taking place at our southern border, the injustice that we see taking place in fair housing. These things are things that Democrats have been pushing for us to get fixed. And I think that any one of these candidates would be good messengers for that.
Congressman Clyburn, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll, of course, be following what happens next in this shutdown. Thank you.